Nicole Beharie stars in the new film Miss Juneteenth and has earned some awards notices for her performance. I'm Kevin Jacobsen of Gold Derby here with Nicole. So you are playing Turquoise, who is a former pageant queen who's putting her daughter into the same pageant that she won. She's a very complex character. What did you find the most interesting about Turquoise before you signed on for the role?
Mm. Well, first, thank you for having me, Kevin. What did I find most interesting about her? I guess, like you said, she's complicated. There are a bunch of contradictions in this character. And although she has like a pretty good moral compass, there's some interesting value judgments and assessments that she makes that I thought was interesting. Like as a woman, especially playing a mom. In general, the women are like the upstanding, long-suffering, like super positive, find a way kind of thing, and that's still a theme here. But what she has to do to sort of win for her daughters, there's like a little hustling, maybe some deception. Yeah, I thought that was interesting, and then also there's a kind of a like a soft sensuality and history that I think a lot of women kind of put on the back burner when they become mothers, especially mothers on camera. She's not glamorous, but I liked that. I liked that, like, she's not done up or anything, but yet the guys like can feel her like magnetism, and she's able to flirt while she's driving a pickup truck in the dead of the summer, with her child beside her. So she still owns like this kind of like sexuality that's interesting.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's a real authenticity to your performance where she really does feel like a three-dimensional woman, and I don't think you can really define her as one thing. But can you talk about just the prep work that you put in to really embody this woman?
Ooh, yeah. The prep work is honestly it's weird. Sometimes it's tedious. In this case, because it was active, I did, at home you do like the script breaking down and all that kind of stuff, answering all these questions. But I went down to Fort Worth, Texas, where my director Channing Godfrey Peoples lives, and really is the land and the world in which these people thrive and just like navigate their lives. I realized once I got there that it was a really specific version of the South. Like I've lived in the South, I've lived in Georgia and South Carolina, but I haven't lived specifically in Fort Worth, Texas. And she was like, I want to see this community. I want to see these people. I want us to reflect this and this like little slice of life, this one little summer. Um, yeah, so for me, I went down there and I started working on the dialect, and I hung out with like two or three women and a few men, and I learned some. I mean, of course, with any film, everything doesn't make it onto the cutting room. Um, some of it just makes it to the floor, basically. But I learned dances. I learned, how to cook different things. I actually did learn to barkeep. Some of the scenes where she's working at the bar, I actually worked at the bar for a weekend or two, and everyone else was local, so they kind of kept me honest. As you can see, I don't speak, and my mannerisms are a little bit different than hers are, so I just kind of like observed, and then would sort of build the confidence to try things, and got to the place where I was hoping that I could be under the radar, like in the community, and just sort of like blend in. One of the big tests was our first day of shooting was the parade, the big parade where they're outside and she's going. That was my first day, and I was like, oh my gosh, my first day, and like full look, and we're out there with like the whole community. So if I didn't get it together, it was going to be like, I was going to stand out like a sore thumb. And so yeah, just inundating myself and respecting everything that everyone had to say. People would stop me. Channing would be like, no, you're saying it wrong, and I just had a lot of respect for it.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask about your collaboration with Channing, and this was her directorial debut for a feature film. She also wrote the screenplay. What was she like to just collaborate with on this project that was clearly very special to her?
Yeah, she would say, and she had actually just had a literal baby and was shooting with her daughter on her hip. Talk about
Wow.
like superwoman and just having like a grassroots community there to support her. She would be like, "This is my other baby." And so if that ain't pressure, I don't know what is. I was like, okay, well, and then you're also surrounded by the community. So it just kind of felt like, I don't want to say fading in, but it just felt like right, like second nature to sort of work with her. And when she had certain direction, I think sometimes when you're doing things as like the person of color on set or whatever, like the people who are directing you may know less about what you're trying to get across, or what your character might be going through. In this case, she knew more about it than I did. So sometimes I would just be like, okay, I'll definitely give that a go. And just it was a huge collaboration, but I feel like I also just respected it and just kind of went with the flow on this one. And so much of it as well was her giving me the permission to be in a way that I've never been able to be on camera, which is like a gift. Like the pace in general, you're kind of a plot device, or you're like trying to like get someone's attention, or you're moving the story along. And this time I got to just really like think and experience things in a way I've never had. I've never had that experience as an actor on anything. So that was a huge gift.
Yeah, and with so many of your scenes also having to be with Alexis Chikezie, who plays Kai, your daughter, how did the two of you develop that kind of dynamic? Because it feels very lived in, and like the two of you almost have a history there.
Yeah, she came in. I was already in Texas, and we read, and it was a nice read, but I could tell she was nervous, but you could feel like, oh, she's good though. You know what I mean? You're like seeing
Yeah.
someone audition, and you like, she's good though. Let's warm her up and make her comfy. And then when she got the part, it was sort of like the mother, Turquoise, wants to see her daughter thrive. And then the actress, Nicole, wants to see Alexis thrive. So it was almost like taking care, like you've joined this like sisterhood, this wild sisterhood. And I want this to be a good experience, and I want you to do your best. So that was like the most visceral, easy explanation of it. And then, singing Beyonce in the background. I'm really goofy, so I was probably more like a big sister than a mom. There's lots of dancing off camera, and push-up championships and things like that to like make her feel comfortable. But yeah, she was just ready, and she would watch me. I also had to not be like stingy about her watching me. She would watch me, and I could tell she was like, "Oh, that's what you do." You kind of, I was like, "Yeah, go ahead. Let's have this like back and forth." So, but then she'll start to come up with her own stuff. So I was cool with that. It was really lovely working with her, though. She's so open, and I'm excited that people are getting to meet her with us, and I'm pretty sure we'll see her do a, a gazillion things.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Turquoise is just so insistent on her daughter competing in the Miss Juneteenth pageant, even when it's pretty clear that her daughter is just really not into it for the most part for the most of the film. And she mentions at one point that she just wants her daughter to be on the path to a better life.
Yeah.
But I'm curious how much of a balance you think there is between Turquoise kind of wanting what's best for her daughter, but also trying to recapture a little bit of that magic from when she was a teenager.
Look, I think it's a little bit of both, right? Because
Yeah,
that's because
yeah.
that, like you said, like her identity's linked into that. And you even see like on the sidelines of basketball and football games, like the guy, the fathers that are screaming and coaching, that was their thing. Like they were once that quarterback or whatever. So I feel like that's a big part of it. But it's also like it's the access that she's been given, like, this is the path. This is the only path she knows. She trusts it. And she's like, this is the way I can provide for my daughter. And I feel like so many of us, I think that's something in the story that people are relating to, and like how we can be so narrow minded about how we get somewhere and not see that there are actually all these other doors that we're not walking through, that we're not even imagining for ourselves. And what's cool about this is by the end of it, she walks through a few other doors, tests one or two, doesn't work out, tests another one, and is like, yeah, okay, this is what I'm really after. And it's through her daughter that she discovers that, you know. So in the end, it's a great thing that she forced her daughter into doing it. But yeah, maybe we could have done it in a different way. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, another interesting dimension of this is that Turquoise also kind of has like a fraught relationship with her own mother.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on just what got them to the point of where when we see them in the film, and whether any of that relationship actually maybe had an effect on how she's raising her own daughter?
Yeah. I mean, her mother, she says this line is like, all a woman needs is her beauty, you know, um, and just knows how to use it. And then you can find like the right guy. And at the end of the story, Turquoise like chooses to go against the grain of our usual Hollywood fantasy, which is like you get literally the knight in shining armor on a horse. He shows up on a horse. And she's like, nah, I'm good. Actually, I'm gonna do my own thing. Um, her mother's way and her generation's way was that way. And then Turquoise is like trying to create her way for her daughter. I think that you're seeing like every generation rebel, but hopefully they're stepping into like finding themselves in a better place than the previous generation. And I also think because her mother saw the world that way and didn't see that like she had any agency in her own life, that affected Turquoise. So it took the process of this story for her to finally be like, wow, I bring a lot to the table. Like, I'm running this business. I want to own this business. You know what I mean? But you can't see that if no one's ever said that that part of you was valuable, if it's just your beauty, you know? And I mean, I don't care what anybody says. So many women, like we have these multi-billion-dollar companies that are based on, lack, women, wanting to be more beautiful or whatever. It's a huge part of our psyche and our conditioning. So yeah, that's my answer for that. I'm not going to go too far into that because then I'll get in trouble.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the film ends on I saw it as a very hopeful note where Turquoise is about to enter a new phase in her life as a businesswoman. Have you put any thought into just where she goes from there? How her relationships might evolve, or, things like that. I don't know if you think about that for your characters once you're done with them.
No, I'm done. They're like, cut. I'm like, okay, where's my
Moving on. Yeah.
Goodbye. No. Yeah, it's funny because I almost feel like the end of our story is the beginning, right? It's kind of a beginning. And I would be curious to see like what happens with Kai and Turquoise after that. Who are they once she's owning her own business and has a place in the community that's not about her beauty. It's about, like what she's been providing anyway, but just with a little bit more agency and like dignity. I don't know. Maybe she'd open a few more of those little spots. And those spots, man, like it was really fun working in there. There's so much history in those little like barbecue juke joint kind of places that we got to work in. That spot was like so authentic and so real, and really is kind of like a touchstone in the community, and in a way that I hadn't recognized because it's not something I've ever had in my life. So yeah, maybe she'll become like the mayor.
Okay. I would like to see it. Yeah. Yeah. Well, the movie dropped in theaters and digitally on Juneteenth last year. And I
Yeah.
think it certainly had a special resonance because at that time we were really in the heart of the Black Lives Matter reckoning. What kind of response were you getting at that time once more of a general audience was able to see it and really connect with this story?
Whew. Honestly, this is probably not the best answer, but the truth is I couldn't really even think about the film at the time because I
Mhm.
was so engaged with what was like really happening, you know? Um, there are themes like Ronnie ends up in jail, like the, prison industrial complex. And obviously there are like social economic status that's being reflected but not harped on in the movie. But I guess one of my hopes is that the holiday itself, Juneteenth, which is, June 19th, when it was released, as you said, 1865, which was 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation. The enslaved in Galveston, Texas, had just found out because Union soldiers came down to inform them that they had in fact been freed 2.5 years ago. So like freedom come late, which is also a theme in our film. My hope is that like it can become a national holiday, that people just, we acknowledge the complexity and the breadth of this country. And once we do that, once we look back at the past and we're like, oh, this is the real history, this is the truth, these are who we've been, this is who we are, who do we want to be? We can't create a great future. And again, that kind of goes in line with what you were saying, the generations of these women. This is the past, this is who we are, who do we want to be? You can't create the who you want to be if your foundation is wonky and you're not willing to look at what the truth is. So I think, commemorating Juneteenth as a national holiday would be amazing. So if we could have any little part in that, just getting that word on the tips of more people's tongues, I think that would be a job well done.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, on a bit of a lighter note, you're gaining some accolades, most notably from the Gotham Awards. You're nominated
Mm.
for Best Actress. I mean, what has it meant for you to get this kind of recognition, especially for a role like this in particular?
I mean, I don't know, man. It's so shocking, honestly. It's like, this is shocking, even talking to you right now, because it was a script, like a tiny script. And we went down there. I did it for like nothing, I did it for love. And we were also Juneteenth was sort of not on the tongues. Like people weren't really talking about it in 2019 when we shot this. So it just didn't like I was like, I'm gonna do this movie. Who knows who's gonna see it? Like, I love it. We'll see, you know? And so now to have people acknowledging our work, it feels good. I don't have any expectations. I'm just kind of excited that people are seeing it. And I hope in this crazy time that they get something good out of it, our shared humanity, maybe. Yeah. I don't know. Awards. I've never been a part of that before, so.
It's a whole new world.
Oh, I can show you the world. It's like one of my favorite songs.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
A whole new world, but there's like a dark side of whole new world. Not with the
Yeah, you got to be
award.
careful. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, not with
Yeah.
the awards, but like the actual world that we're living in is a whole new world too.
That is very true. That is very true.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Nicole, and congrats on this performance and for your nominations. And thank you so much for talking to me today.
Thank you for your time. Yeah. Sorry about the
Yeah.
tangents. Are you going to edit this a little?
Maybe. I think it was good. I think it was good. You're good.
All right.
But for those of you watching, hit like and subscribe for more interviews and go to goldderby.com to make some award show predictions. You can even predict Nicole if you want.